Hey guys, yesterday me and my clanmates managed to beat the Elite 10 difficulty of Vanguard, and doing so we actually managed to get the first clear on our server. So as you can see, our names have been printed here, and I believe that they will be visible until the next season, which is going to be in September. I was kind of apprehensive about doing this because our charm ranks were only around rank 15, but we actually managed to do it with a strategy, which I'll be explaining in this video. But just to show you guys, none of us were particularly high resonance in this group, and I don't think that resonance matters that much in Vanguard. You could just go with some very optimal gems that give you damage, and you'll do just fine. So the first player, my friend here, he only has about 3k resonance here. We've got Yshari, so he was playing with, I believe, 5.5k. Resonance. Right now his resonance is 6k, but for the run he actually switched out the Echoing Shade here for a rank 10 Pain Clasp. And for my last clanmate here, Tamarisco, he has, I believe, 5.3k maximum resonance, but for the run he also switched out the More of the Deep here. I think he was using Mornskull, and for the Gloomcast here I think he also switches out to Pain Clasp, I believe, so his resonance was around 4.5k. So the average resonance in the party was roughly 4k. I just wanted to kind of make this point because a lot of people will say, oh, Diablo Immortal, like every mode is just for whales, everything's pay to win. And while that's true to an extent, at least for Vanguard, I believe that this mode can be accessible to people who have optimized setups, even if they're not particularly the most highest resonance players. Just before I move on to talk about the builds and strategy that we used, I wanted to take a moment to talk about the rewards for getting this first clear. So as you guys can see, I've already claimed this chest here, but as far as the reward goes, it's actually pretty bad. The reward that you get is only 100 charm shards, and with that, I guess you can upgrade your charm faster, but actually, if you've already cleared Elite 10, then there's no real point to actually upgrade your charm. I guess the only point would be for the end of season reward to get your charm to rank 20, but honestly, that's in September, and we have so much time for that, so it's not really worth it. But this is going to be a server-wide reward, so once you clear it, everybody on your server will get access to this 100 charm shards. So the only real reward that you do get for clearing this is just having the glory, I guess, being at the top of the leaderboard and having your name there until the next season, where it's most likely going to be cleared. So I'd only recommend people to do this if they're really interested to kind of have the challenge, have a bit of fun with their friends. Other than that, I'd say it's not really worth it. As far as the build that I used, I'll quickly also go over it. I don't want this video to become a build guide video, so I'm going to do this pretty quickly. So I'm using Conjuration of Light, I'm using Shield Glare, I'm using Judgment, Condemn, and for the primary attack I'm using Sacred Fire. I'll quickly also show the essence that I'm using. So I'm using Gaze of Wrath for the helmet, Heart of Grandeur for the chest, Yawning Rose for the shoulders. For the pants, I'm using the Permanent Reproach. For the main hand, I'm using Horn Splitter and the Bristle. And then for the offhands, I'm using Lofty Light and I'm using Torrential Refrain. And then for the set pieces, this is kind of important, I'm using 6 pieces of Vithu, and then I'm using 2 pieces of the Feasting Barons. So I'm not using the Amulet set here, just because we need the 6 pieces of Vithus. This is extremely good in Vanguard because it's going to heal you, and the healing ability of this is actually even better than the healing charms, in my opinion. So here you can see I was using my rank 16 healing field, but I believe that this Vithu's ability is actually even superior for the healing. So I think that actually 3 of us in the party were using 6 pieces of Vithus just to get that extra heal. But I'll also talk about the other strategies that we were using. So another key part of the strategy is the Paragon tree that I was using. So we were all using a very similar setup to this. The really important part of this is the Harbinger tree. So the Harbinger tree has this node called Illusory Strides, and it says that you move unhindered through monsters and barriers or traps created by skills. This is incredibly good because in this mode, especially if you're playing Elite 10 with a charm that's pretty low rank, a lot of the time you won't be able to kill the monsters. Even if you're all doing excellent damage, the monsters just won't die in time during the run, and you're going to get trapped behind them, and sometimes you need to dodge some of the attacks that they do. This node just helps you kind of move through them as if they're not there on your screen, and it's kind of the MVP. Previously in Vanguard seasons, I would use either the Survivor tree, or if it's like late into the season and I want a bit more damage, I would use the Singer tree. But I believe that this Harbinger tree, just purely because of this, is extremely strong, and I believe that having all players having this node is going to make your run a lot more likely to be successful. So other than that, we're using defensive nodes just because we didn't find that we needed the damage. We weren't having troubles killing the boss. In this mode, one thing that I will say that's really important is that you don't actually need to kill any of the mobs during the run. It isn't going to make your run faster or anything. The most important thing is to actually stay alive and camp on the cleansing spires and just make sure that you cleanse them. And once you've cleansed all 3 of them, the boss boss is going to spawn, and then it's at that moment where you're going to need damage. As far as the defensive nodes we've gone for here, so we've gone for the Chosen One. After leaving combat, you'll gain extra damage reduction, so this one is pretty good when you're moving between spires and stuff, but also because of the strategy that we used, this one was also pretty impactful. And then other than that, we've gone for your immune to knockback effects. This one is just okay. Some of the mobs do have some kind of annoying knockback effects, especially if you're trying to give immune with the Conjuration of Light, so this one is pretty decent. And then duration of Chosen One is extended, and then finally the shield with the Chosen One, which is pretty good. So the trick that I do want to tell people is that you can actually switch your Paragon tree while inside. So once the boss actually spawns, like if you're successful cleansing the 3 spires, you can actually open this menu again. So you just open the Paragon menu, switch to like the Slinger tree, that will give you more damage, and if you just press the activate button in the bottom right here, it's going to activate your last used setup for this tree, and you'll be able to kill the boss a lot faster with this, because I believe that you don't really need to be using this tree for the boss. So once again, you can just click the activate, and just like that, you can switch to a last use setup. Finally, for the legendary skill, I was using the Curse of Weakness. Your loss of control effects also apply Curse of Weakness to enemies, reducing the damage they deal by 30% for 3 seconds. I found that this one was pretty good. I was always applying the loss of control with the blinding from the Lofty Light, so I felt that this one was pretty good. But other than that, we also had a few players using the Benefactor tree that gives you shield for your party. This one is also pretty good if you want to use it. Aside from this, I'll quickly show the builds my teammates were using. So for Aranir, he was another Crusader. He was just using the Fire Banner setup, but the important thing is he was also using the Conjuration of Light, and as you can see, he was using the Harbinger tree. Temerisco, he was using a Vortex setup here with a Tempest, also using the Harbinger tree here, which is extremely good. The important thing to note is that both the Tempests in my party were using Windwalk, and Windwalk gives you another immunity, so we were just stacking immunities during the run, which I'll show. And basically, once their Windwalk expired, we would pop our Conjuration one by one with the Crusaders, and this would make sure that everybody was immune pretty much 99% of the time during the run, and they could just camp and sit in the Windwalk or in the immunity and cleanse the Spire. So the same thing for Yshari here. He was also going for a Windwalk setup, so the 2 key pieces to use are the Dawning Smile Helmet Essence and the Grassblade Edge Main Hand Essence. These are going to improve the duration of your Windwalk, which is extremely good. I believe Yshari was using a slightly different build with the Score DPS setup, but that didn't really matter during the run. I'm sure there's many strategies players could use to clear Elite 10, but for us, the strategy that worked was to use immunities during the run, and then once we managed to spawn the boss, we just go for full attacks. Since we were playing with 2 Crusaders and 2 Tempests, the 2 main skills for immunity are Conjuration of Light and Windwalk. So Conjuration of Light for Crusader, this says it calls down a beam of holy light from the heavens, protecting you and nearby allies with damage immunity for 3 seconds. So this is a really good skill. The only downside to it is the range is pretty short. It's just a very small circle here, so you have to make sure that you're within range of your teammates before actually pressing it. So as far as the description for Windwalk for the Tempest, in case people aren't familiar with that skill, it reads that it conjures a cyclone for 2.5 seconds, increasing your attack speed by 20% and making you untargetable while you remain inside the storm. And then this skill was actually nerfed, and it was changed that if you do any kind of attack, you're going to lose the immunity. So most of the time, the Tempests weren't actually attacking during the run, just so they don't lose the Windwalk. I guess while they were immune with the Conjuration of Light, they could attack then, but for most of the run, they weren't really attacking that much, whereas the Crusaders were kind of spamming their Shield Glare, Judgment, and Condemn, and just running around the mobs, and you could actually pass through them with the Paragon tree that we're using. Unfortunately, Windwalk cannot be applied to teammates. It's only a personal immunity, so basically it was kind of harder for the Crusaders to survive outside of the immunity. So for us Crusaders, we were always moving around. I'll show that in the video later, but we were always moving around, whereas the Tempest would kind of camp in the middle on the Spire, and then they'd call out once their Windwalk had expired, and then usually both Crusaders would pop in. Only one of them would pop their damage immunity for the whole group, and then once that had expired, by that time the Tempest could then press their Windwalk again, and then once that had also expired, then both Crusaders would go back in, and then the second Crusader would pop the damage immunity. So that was kind of the strategy in a nutshell that we employed, but like I said, there's many other strategies that people can use. As far as the charms that we were using, all 3 of my clanmates were using a rank 15 charm. The first one was Aegis, that gave us a shield. Then the second one was the Broadside, which empowers the primary attacks of allies and makes them do extra damage. This one is pretty good, but it's not really the best one. And then for the final charm, we just had to use the Valor's Call to give us the crit chance. I think it's going to be extremely tough if players don't have this one. At least one player in the party should have a Valor's Call. Unfortunately, we didn't have the Blight Orb charm, which I'm kind of a fan of because you can do 100% extra damage. But like I said, it didn't really matter because our strategy didn't really revolve around killing mobs. We only had to kind of survive long enough to kill the boss. And then finally for me, I was using a rank 16 healing field charm. So I was the only one in the party that was using a rank 16. One quick thing that I do want to mention is that Blizzard seems to have changed the Elite 10, and it seems to be a bit more challenging now because not only does it have the health and damage multipliers for the mobs and for the boss, it also has elite affixes. So unfortunately, I can't really show them to you guys on my client because I still have the reward for Vanguard from last season. So just to show you guys, if I do click this window, I won't be able to see. As you can see here, I just clicked it, and right now it just shows me the previous season rewards. And if I were to close this, then it shows me that I still haven't claimed the reward, and I don't really want to claim it right now. This is going to be like a 444 legendary item, and I'm going to save this for Paragon 1000 actually. I was going to claim this for Paragon 900, but then I decided that I was actually going to keep it all the way for Paragon 1000. So unfortunately, a quick tip that I can give you guys is if you get stuck on this screen and you don't want to claim it, like if you click around, obviously you can't minimize this now. So what you can do is actually press I, which is going to open the inventory, and then once you do that, you can just teleport. I'll just teleport to Westmarch here, and then once you've done that, the teleport animation is going to start in the background, and once that's over, that should minimize the screen, and then you won't have to restart the game. I went through the strategy of saving your Vanguard reward in another video, so I won't talk about it in this video, but I did have a screenshot from one of my clanmates who did show me the elite affixes, so I can quickly talk about them here. So there were 3 elite affixes for Elite 10, and the first one is Life Denied. Player life drain effects are further reduced, which is pretty nasty. And then the second one, which is really annoying, is that monsters are immune to knockback effects. So if you're using like Demon Hunter knockback skills or Tempest knockback skills, they won't be active here, which is pretty annoying. As far as I can tell, freeze effects still seem to work, and like blinding effects potentially still work, but unfortunately knockback effects won't be active here. And then for the last one, Relentless Aura. Elite enemies have a chance to gain an aura that greatly increases the attack, movement, and attack speed of nearby monsters. This is actually pretty devastating because sometimes you'll just see a mob does a huge amount of damage, a lot more than expected, and depending on the mob type, it can basically kill your run completely. So you have to be a bit careful, and it does require a bit of RNG. Unfortunately, my recording software bugged out and I wasn't able to record the actual run we did on the first clear, but I'll quickly show you guys an example run just to show you the strategy that we did. So the run starts here, and like I said, we don't need to kill any of these mobs, we just need to survive and cleanse the spire. So here, I'm just trying to stay alive and in the middle, and whenever I see the Vithu proc, I'm just trying to do damage so I can heal up really quickly. But the main goal here for me as a Crusader isn't actually to cleanse the spire, it's just to stay alive so I can go in and proc my damage immunity. So as you can see, I procced the damage immunity because on voice the 2 Tempests told me that their Windwalk had just ended, and there again you can see that the second Crusader went in and did the same thing. But most of the time we're just running around as Crusaders trying to stay alive because obviously we don't have the Windwalk immunity. So once again we're going to employ the same strategy here. So I'm just running around trying to stay alive. I got hit there, lost quite a huge chunk of my life, but we're just trying to stay alive, and if we can cleanse the spire, then we do it. If we can't really cleanse the spire because we're going to take damage, then we just try to run around. The other thing also is that we can actually change stance to gain a shield temporarily. This is actually pretty useful if you're about to die, you can use that, but the main thing, like I said, is just to listen to the calls of the Tempests, and once their Windwalk expires, you want to be going in and everybody getting the damage immunity and then getting out basically. So as you can see here, the other Crusader has given me the damage immunity, so basically as long as we stagger the damage immunity, we're immune pretty much all the time. So the Tempest, how the rotation goes is that both Tempests pop their Windwalk ability at the same time, and then once that expires, the first Crusader, who we decided was going to be me, would go in, pop the damage immunity for them, and then once the damage immunity expires, they'd pop their Windwalk again, and then once that second Windwalk expires, it would be the second Crusader going in and giving the damage immunity to the whole party. So as you can see, we're not taking any damage here because most of us are immune for the whole run, and then unfortunately at the end of this part here, we kind of got knocked back just before I was able to press the immunity. So I think think for this particular run I wasn't using the immune to knockback, which is the reason why we kind of got hit there. But like I said, if you use the immune to knockback, you won't have this issue. So unfortunately here we got the worst boss, which is the spider, and the really good boss is actually Yamnau, which is the boss that does like water attacks. That's the one that you want. The other two bosses, which are Lasal and this one here is Sia, the two bosses aren't good, and I would kind of restart the run if you get one of those bosses. But the important thing is that you're consistently able to actually reach the point of spawning the boss, and then once you've spawned the boss, you want to kind of hit the 1 in 3, get the right boss that you want, switch out to the Slinger Paragon tree, and then as long as you have correctly optimized setups with good damage gems, you should be able to kind of easily kill the boss here and get the Elite 10 done. So like I said, there'll be many strategies. I know that there's a few other classes with like healing abilities or immune skills which should work very well. You don't have to use this exact same setup that we were using. So I hope that this video has been useful for you guys. Do let me know in the comments below if the Elite 10 first clear has been taken on your server. So far I've heard of one other server in Europe that has actually taken this clear, and they actually managed to do it a week before we managed to, which is very impressive. But yeah, if the clear hasn't been taken on your server and you do like playing Vanguard, then this is just a really fun challenge to do with friends, and I definitely recommend trying it out. For now, I'm going to be signing off. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace.